Right, Strongman fam, welcome back to the MST Systems YouTube channel, you little fucks. Please hit the subscribe button, hit the fucking like button, put a little shitty comment below saying Paul Smith looks like a thumb, and then we can crack on with the video. So, today's video is going to be a question that I randomly get asked quite a few times in my Instagram inbox, but then somebody commented it on a YouTube video the other day. It reminded me that I get asked that a lot, and I was laughing. So the question is Mr. Paul Smith, who is England's strongest man 3 times, I believe, world's strongest man competitor in 2018. I'm going off his Insta bio here. Under 23 world's strongest man in 2017. He's a cat dad and he's in love with Shannon. Lovely. Well, is he natural? That's the question that I get asked quite a few times, because Paul Smith, when it comes to the Giants Live boys, and I'm sorry to break some of your little souls, when it comes to the Giants Live boys, 99.99999 people are smashing the gear. That's just how it works. I know that may be shocking news to some of you, but I'm sorry. They're smashing the juice. Not quite. No, I'm taking a piss. Not smashing the juice, but they're on the juice. I'll say that. Some of them are smashing the juice. But a lot of them are just, very genetically gifted and take a little bit of sauce and get real strong. But they're all on the juice, boys. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. But Paul Smith, is he natty? The reason why people ask me this is Paul Smith is, he doesn't go around shouting it from the rooftops, you know what I mean? But, with people asking me, he's like, yeah, I'm natural. And obviously, it's quite a rare thing. People get skeptical, and obviously, he's pretty fucking strong. So people get skeptical and they kind of debate on it, and people message me all the time like, do you really think Paul Smith is natural? What do you think he's on? So, I'll give you my opinion. I'm going to scroll his Instagram first of all, because when somebody uses gear, it's kind of obvious, to be perfectly honest with you, because, oh bloody hell, here's a throwback pic of Paul. Hey, you are proper thummified there, aren't you, Paul, mate? Jesus. So here's a picture of Paul with, I believe that is Phil. What's he fucking called? I fucking like him as well. The guy who hurt his knee. Phil. Oh, I don't bloody know his name. The guy fucked his knee that time. Phil Roberts. He's called Phil Roberts. I remember him from Titanium Strength Gym. See, I don't know why I can't remember his name, but Phil's a good strong man as well. This is Paul with Phil in 2016 at age 21, and the thing with Paul is, I've actually known Paul a very long time. Paul came to Salt Air Strongman back in the day. I'm sure Shannon can maybe find some little vids of me slinging tin in Salt Air Strongman. Well, Paul was about 15 years old, genuinely about 15 years old, when he went to SAS Strongman. And I swear to God, the boy axled like 130. He might not have been 50, he might be about 16. He was a young fucker though. You know what I mean? Just walked like a lost dog, didn't know what to do, anxious as fuck. And then just axled 130. Very powerful, beautiful belly clean, loads of great leg drive. Has some kind of like Olympic coaching, Olympic lifting background. He's been coached Olympic lifts from a young age. I believe, I'm making all this up by the way, just off memory, because we're talking about 10 years ago now, but the guy has been lifting from a young age, and he's a gifted athlete, is what I'm trying to say. It's not like he's just some random bloke off the fucking street claiming he's natural. He's been doing this sport a very long time, and he is, he's just crept up. He's creeping, you know what I mean? So looking back for his gram here, there's never really a period of time where anything changes crazy. Like this is him in March this year, slinging 280 for 5 on the axle deadlifts. He's got a 172.5 for 5 beltless pause front squat, looking easy. And I know Paul pulled about 340 kilos probably about 4 or 5 years ago. So, you know what I mean? It's not like he's suddenly doing 340 for 5, you know what I mean? It's 280 for 5 on the axle. What's this deadlift here? I think he nearly pulled 400 the other day. But again, you see this 400 attempt, it is in a triple ply deadlift suit. You know, the big fucking orange tangoed one. So this is the thing with Paul, is genuinely, I don't really, personally, I just don't see why anybody would think he's on gear, to be honest with you. His physique is very similar all year round. That's a big tell. when somebody gets on gear, traps and delts and neck tend to just go up. There's more androgen receptors around there, I believe, is the reason for that. And pressing is the thing that is the most drastically affected in terms of strength. You know, you get somebody who does their first cycle, their press will fly. The press will fly. The deadlift and whatnot, it does improve and follow suit, but nowhere near as drastic as the press. Paul's press has been good since he was fucking 16 years old. Like I said, he was pressing 130 when he was a young kid at Saltaire Strongman. I think he's got a 200 kilo push press now. Is that achievable natural? 100%. The guy's technique is perfect on the push press. He's able to attain a proper Olympic rack position with a full grip on a barbell, which allows some oscillation and a little bit of whip. If you learn how to use that, it's very helpful. The full grip and making contact with the delts allows better power transfer through the legs. And because he's been doing it so many years, he's extremely efficient at transferring the power from his leg drive into his overhead press and accelerating the bar with his triceps rather than chucking and catching. So yeah, it's a really easy one for me to answer. Like I said, I've seen Paul fucking 10 years ago, and he was athletic and gifted and strong back then. I followed his whole training career, if you want to call it that, and he's just chipped away at his strength. He's just chipped away linearly, real well, consistently. I know that Paul likes to go through different phases of training. He's very smart with it. He's all about the longevity in the sport, so he will do phases of power training, hypertrophy training, then he'll get more specific. I believe that's how he does it. It might have changed now, but I've spoken to him a few times, that's how he does it. So, he has these phases of 3 to 4 months where he'll be lifting lower loads. I know he's experimented with the high frequency deadlift. He's very open-minded to coaching and training modalities and different ways of getting stimulus to get stronger. So yeah, I really it's not as if the guy just one day his physique changed, his delts blew up, his triceps are hanging off his fucking back of his arm, he's suddenly getting gassed, he's suddenly bright red with high blood pressure. There's none of that. There's nothing. The guy's, in my opinion, it's just fucking clearly obvious. He's a very gifted, hard-working, consistent, that's a key word, consistent, for 10 years, consistent, and also very well-rounded athlete. He's not going to go into a comp and smash and win every single event. He's going to be mid-pack, top 3, kind of around there. But every event, he doesn't really have an event that's shit. And that's how you do well in the sport of strongman, and that's how you get to where he's at. Yeah, he's not got a 1,000-pound deadlift, you know what I mean? But he's closing in on 400 kilo now. He's chipping away nicely. And he is, getting better at the events slowly over time. And he, like I say, he's consistent across the board. Now, here's my opinion. If I was Paul Smith, I'd be looking at taking gear, to be perfectly honest with you, because at this point in time, you've been training 10 years, or whatever it is exactly. You've been training a long time, you've been chipping away, and you start to get to this point in training where it's called marginal gains. So you're just making micro gains. Couple of kilo here, couple of kilo there, then you might get a little injury or a niggle and you lose them kilos and you're like, fuck's sake, and you've got to claw them back. And sometimes strength training at that stage in your lifting career, sometimes it can be fucking annoying because you make one step forward, but then because you're lifting such heavy loads and there's such high risk with it, you get one little setback and then you're suddenly 2 steps back, and then you're fighting to get 1 step forward, and it can kind of feel like the whole year is getting 1 step forward, 1 step back, you're just kind of this same place. And then you might get a really good consistent run going for 6 months and maybe, chip away at some PBs. Like I know, following Paul, his high frequency deadlift block he'd done, that seems to have gone really well for him. Again, that's like a bit of a surge in training, it's going really well. But oftentimes those surges, you need to learn to be able to stop and be like, right, I've got enough out of that, I need to lay off a bit, because you keep pushing and eventually something might give. So if it was me personally, I was Paul, I'd be looking at the fact that I'm going to be making marginal gains for a long time. I'm still young, I'm very healthy, I'm very fit, and I'm one of the best in the world at this sport, natural, and nobody else is. So I personally, if I was Paul, I'd be looking at what kind of money can I make out of this sport? and I would start tallying it up, and I would decide, and I would, basically, look at the prize money I can make in SCL and Giants comps and stuff. And if it were me, I'd just hop on the sauce, because someone like Paul, all he'd need to do is something like 500 milligrams of testosterone per week, and just stay on it year round with HCG. I would make sure I kept HCG in, and I would keep HCG in weekly, probably something like 1,000 a week, around there, 500 Monday, 500 Thursday, and I would be doing that for like a year straight. Nothing crazy, no orals, no tren, nothing mad. But what that's going to do is, when you take a testosterone, it allows you to keep your hormone level completely stable all the time, which means that as a natural, you have a stressful day at work, you have a bad night's sleep, you undereat, you're stressed, whatever, your fucking cat's running around on the roof, you've got to climb and get it off. Whatever, you're fucking pole dancing naked, whatever you're doing, Paul, your testosterone level's going to be like, boom, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. And sometimes these things, the hormones don't align with what the goals are. Sometimes things can be crashed and low, and things feel heavy and move shit, and you end up with inconsistent performances, throughout the training week, training month, training year, competitions as well. Taking that steady bleed of testosterone, 500 milligrams is not a crazy dose, guys, you know what I mean? Just keeping that in all year is going to enable him to move from marginal gains to actually getting back to some decent progressions again. So I'm not saying that he takes 500 mg of test and within 2 months he's going to be an animal. Well, he already is an animal, but you know what I mean? I'm just saying that over that training year, it could be the difference between he's just failed 400 there. He might be able to pull that, pretty clean in April, May time, and then he might pull 410 at the back end of the year in December, or 420. You know what I mean? Saying all this, you could potentially do it naturally if he's already at that level. It'd be very, very hard. And I think that 420 for Paul is more like a 3 or 4 year journey, naturally, in my opinion, if everything goes really well as well. Whereas you could cut that down to like a year, and then once you're at like 420 dead area in a year, suddenly you're like in the mix of the big pullers, you know what I mean? Although 400 and 420 are quite close, in terms of points in competitions, it's quite a difference, you know what I mean? And then going into the year after, it could potentially be at like, close to £1,000 by the end of the year if he did a really big push. And the thing that Paul's got on a lot of people is he's already got mobility, he's already got all the skill acquisition. He doesn't need anything but strength. He doesn't need anything but strength. So a tiny bit of testosterone would make all his lifts go up at the same time, because his yoke technique is perfect. His axle continental clean and push is perfect. His log clean and push, everything is technically sound. A lot of people get into this sport and they have to build the skill whilst they're running the gear. Paul has played the long game. Paul has played the best game he can play in this sport, but he's just not playing that final card yet. I don't know when he's going to do it. I don't know if he's going to do it, but I do know that when he does play that final card, all the people that think he's not natural will suddenly, fucking have to accept that he was, because there's going to be a change. If he ever does decide, there's going to be a flip, the switch is going to flip, and you're going to fucking see an absolute savage, because Paul won't just, he's already at like, I think he's got like a 180, 190 log. Trust me, the press is the thing that will be the most affected. If Paul got on 500 mg of testosterone, I don't see why he wouldn't be logging 200 by mid next year, end of next year, and then the year after, 210, 215, add a little bit more gear in, a little bit of stronger gear, up your dose to 750 the year after, throw a little bit of Primo in there, throw some anadrols in and some test suspension pre-workout. Ho, Paul Smith, you'd be an animal. 220 log. I believe Paul Smith could log 220. Personally, I actually think that Paul could be around about a £1,000 deadlifter and close to a £500 logger in about 2 or 3 years if he jumped on the juice. I don't see why he wouldn't. And I do think he'd be pushing for World's Finals. And yeah, he'd be fucking... This is what I mean. This is why if it was me, I couldn't not do the gear if I was Paul. Because I'd be like, I don't want to be a shriveled up old fucking scrotum old man looking back going, oh, fucking hell, I remember when I was 30 and I was like the best natural strongman ever and I didn't do gear. Do you remember that? Yeah, nobody remembers that, mate. Everybody just remembers that you're, you know, the 30th strongman in the fucking world. But everyone do their own thing. Paul do his own thing. He's his own man. He's living his own life. I'm sure he's happy as fucking Larry and don't give a fuck. But the boy's natural, so you have to accept it, you little gear freaks. Just because you've been pushing gear in you since you were 16 and you're weak as piss, don't mean that everybody else is slamming the juice from a young age. Although I am in that boat, so touche.